Hi, listeners. Welcome to episode 13 of the Alex Waters Show. I'm your host, Alex Waters. And on this week's episode, I've got Tamara Cook. Tamara is an extraordinary Perth businesswoman, the owner of Known Associates Events Company, and also a part of Known Associates Australia, which is a new 100% Indigenous owned events company in Perth, owned by husband Troy. So yeah, we got to dive deep in this conversation. It was really, really interesting. We talked a lot about Tamara growing up in a family and being the only person of color in that family, and the current climate in the world around and topics of racism and COVID and how that's impacted her business. So there's a lot of avenues that we explored in this conversation. I'm not going to go too much into it because there's just so much juice in the actual conversation itself. But I had a lot of fun recording this. Yeah, Tamara's just a fantastic human being. So I think you'll enjoy this one. Tamara, thanks for joining me.
Welcome. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a little bit cold today. So
different coloured hair to last time I saw you, I think.
Did I have blue hair?
Less blue, yeah.
I was blue.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I thought I was blonde and then I went blue and then I've gone back to blonde, but maybe.
Well, maybe I saw it on socials.
Yeah.
You know how they mix together and you don't
Yeah.
really know what's going on.
Yeah. You can see it's kind of got like tinges of blue in at the moment.
It does.
So, I figured out last week I was thinking about this and I'm like, I think the reason it's been so good for me to change my hair is because I have like a million ideas every single day that I want to go and do, but if I keep changing everything about like business and stuff, my life just becomes dysfunctional.
So your hair is
changing
the key.
my hair, yeah. So I just keep changing my hair and that's like my outlet to.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
There's power in changing your hair. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is the first time I've had straight hair in a year. I was in London last time I had a blow dry, so I've been rocking the tight curls for ages, and I had the same thing. I just needed change. So
yeah, cool.
Right.
So you're naturally curly.
So curly.
Yeah. So
Afro.
How long did it take you to straighten your hair?
I can't do it. The hairdresser it took an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I can't possibly do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Professionals needed.
Change is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, super excited to have you into the new setup in the studio. If you're watching on YouTube, new table and new vibes, and
I didn't even notice that.
Trying to create the phone. Yeah. The video. Yeah, that's there. So yeah, we've got some Palo Santo, a little frog. It's kind of a medicine memento, and a few little knickknacks here. Yeah, so we caught up. Like, we've known each other for probably 7 or 8 years now, but we just randomly connected once in the Pilbara when I was working up there and you were running an event for the company I was working for. Recently reconnected as a part of my 100 Coffees catch-ups, which was awesome. And I thought it'd be really good to get on the show because we were able to talk about a lot of different things. And you've got a really fascinating story. And it was your LinkedIn post that we reconnected on, right? Which was you were sharing about
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. And I think there was an article in the Sunday Times or the West about that. And when we caught up for coffee, you shared that, you were like the only child of color in a pretty much an all white family.
Yep.
Growing up,
right.
which I imagine most people don't assume that's the case in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, people meet me and think that, I've grown up in some exotic country I've got some exotic background. But, I was born in Kenya and my dad is Kenyan, but mum and I left him when I was 1 and came back to Sydney, back to Australia where she's from, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and lived with all of her family. We moved in with her with my grandparents, her parents. And I literally grew up as the black sheep in the family. And then, so what the article was just telling a personal story about what it was like growing up in that skin that looked different, but I felt so the same as everyone else around me. But I was treated differently just because of the colour of my skin. So, sharing that lived experience, it was just a little op-ed that I sent to the West, and they I don't know, there's something in there that resonated and made people feel a sense of connection and understanding, I think, in that article. And they were compelled to put it on the front page, which just knocked my socks off. I had no idea that's where I was going to end up. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there was a lot of feedback after that.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, like reading it and around that, that time, it was only a couple of months ago now, hearing, kind of real life stories of experiences of racism from friends that, just haven't really openly shared their stories over the years or whatever else. And I'm just like, wow, it really opened my eyes. Like it completely blew my mind.
Yeah.
And
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So what was it like? Tell us what it was like growing up in that environment, in that situation. Like, because you're just you're just part of your family. You're a child. No different. Like, you are human. You are who you are. But then suddenly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of your thoughts and values and a lot of the makeup of the person that you become as an adult is formed when you're quite a young child. So the experiences that I had, I was really, I call it a coconut, which is quite a common term. So brown skin on the outside but white on the inside. So my value system aligned to a quite British family. My grandparents were from Britain. So from London, and so white Australia is kind of the culture that I've grown up in. But obviously I looked different. So the outside, not pressure, but the outside attitudes of people were often put on me because I look different. Yeah. So instead of just going about my business like every other kid, I was constantly asked, where are you from? Are you adopted? Why does your mum look different to you? Like just those preconceived perceptions that I was different in some way because I had different coloured skin.
Yeah. You mean from the other kids?
From other kids, from other parents, from a lot of people, like just in shopping centres, people would say, oh, when did you get her? Things like that to my mum. And, that's in the 70s. So a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman walking around with a dark child, they just assumed adoption because there was no father, present that they could sort of make all the pieces of the puzzle fit. So they'd ask all these questions and jump to assumptions. So the impact that had on my life was I started to feel different because I was constantly told you're different. I was constantly asked, where are you from and all these questions. So I started to think, well, why don't I just fit in? Why can't I just be like my mates around me? I didn't really know anyone else of colour, maybe a handful of people, but they weren't kind of in my close circles.
So, I suppose around in the 70s as well, like no one was really travelling internationally as much.
I mean, there was travel. There's just attitudes.
But wasn't as much of it as there is today. Right? Or,
yeah, maybe.
Not today, but...
yeah, not right now. But there's closed off attitudes of just people staying in their boxes rather than being more multicultural. And Australia wasn't as multicultural as it is today.
Yeah.
So, I formed a sort of chip on my shoulder because I was sick of people constantly telling me I was different and all these little they call them microaggressions. So it's not a conscious racism. People would say, where are you from? They don't consciously want to make you feel other, but that's what they're doing.
Sure. By
just asking that question. And they might, genuinely wonder, why do you have dark skin that's different to the rest of your family or different to me or different to the people around us? But being constantly asked that, you feel a sense of otherness and you feel like you're not worthy or you feel like you don't belong. Yeah. So I grew up with that.
And it's crazy because most people are, like I've asked people that question before and it's like, I'm just trying to, you're trying to find like commonality to relate in or I've been there or, that kind of thing.
I've asked it myself. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
But it's like the repetition over, each person only has a moment with you, but you have that repetition over, years, especially as a young kid. It's super impressionable.
Yeah, and there's so many other parts to the person's makeup and personality. So it's kind of boring, like being asked the same thing all the time. Like, ask me about what my interests are. Ask me about where I want to travel to. When I was a kid, what I wanted to be when I grew up. Don't ask me about how I look. It's just boring.
Yeah. What did you want to be?
Oh, a singer.
A singer? Yeah.
I still want to be a singer. I've got one slight problem with that.
Oh, yeah?
Can't sing.
Can't sing.
I'm all right. I'm good at karaoke, but...
there's a really good thing called auto-tune and like, you know.
Yeah, so you can sound like Britney Spears.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's what it was like growing up. And then as an adult, I had a chip on my shoulder until I went to Kenya and met my dad when I was 29. I finally connected with him, which was a long story in itself, and went over there and realised in Kenya, I thought, I'm going to fit in with Kenya and there'll be, you know, people who look like me all around me, and I'll have my dad, and he had seven, I had 7 half siblings there. But yeah, no, I was like a tourist. Everyone's going, oh, you're so light skinned. Oh, you can't dance. You can't. What do you mean you can't crump? What do you mean you can't twerk?
Right.
You dance like a white woman.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was really, I felt just so different over there. So
what was like, you know, you said you went over there expecting to fit in. You get there, you don't fit in how you thought you were going to. What was the kind of realization that you had there?
Yeah, so that was probably my aha moment of my life so far. And I just realized that it's not about the place that you're in, it's the people that are surrounding you. I felt so much love from my Kenyan family. They were so welcoming. And the circumstances under which my mum left could have led my brothers and sisters definitely down another track. Like they should, you would expect they would resent me in some way because mum left them, even though they weren't her children. They were from another marriage. She left them and she left with me, and there was no, it was all under a shroud of secrecy when we fled. So, there could have been a lot of animosity, but there wasn't. There was nothing but love and welcoming and teaching me lots about Kenyan culture and wanting me to come back as soon as I could. And, they just welcomed me with open arms. So that was brilliant. And then, when I got home, I have the same thing with my family and friends. And I just got to this point where I thought, I don't need to fit into a certain culture or a certain box to be happy. And I've just got to just think about the person that I am, the value systems that I have, and be me as an individual. And it doesn't matter if people want to say that I'm Kenyan, even though I feel like, you know, people would say, what nationality are you? And I'd say Australian. They'd say, no, you're not. I'll be like, yeah, I am. I've lived here my entire life. My mum's Australian. If you want to know why I've got dark skin, it's because my dad is Kenyan. He's got dark skin, so I've got some of that. And they'd say, oh, you're Kenyan. I'm like, okay, if that's how you want to think of it, then fine. But I bleed Vegemite. So, so I got over that frustration really, and I just said, yep. This is my parents' history. This is my parents' ancestry. But for me, I feel very much Australian. So please just accept that. But if you don't, then at least I'd been to Kenya after that, and I could say this is the Kenyan part of me. Because before I was 29, I couldn't even. I'd never been there. I didn't know anything about the country. Yeah. And people were trying to get me to identify with that and label me Kenyan, and I was like, it just doesn't, how? Like, I was really mad about that for a long time. Just had attitude.
Not to kind of diminish, you know, that as like an issue of like racism, but people are obsessed with labels in general.
True.
You know, like I grew up in England. I'm white. I look Australian, white Australian. But people, you know, as soon as people find out I was from England, oh, you're English. I'm like, no, I'm Australian. Yeah. I've been here my entire life.
Listen to my voice.
But I suppose for me, it's about understanding that I don't even need to attach to any labels either. You know, so it doesn't matter what labels people try to put on me because none of it, it's just a label. It doesn't really even mean anything at the end of the day.
So true. It doesn't affect the way that you work in society and how you
or who you are on the inside. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
people can piss off with their labels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're listening, right, here's a message to you. You know who you are. So it's been like we're in August now recording this. It's been I think maybe 2 or 3 months since the whole Black Lives Matters thing blew up, and maybe the article was in the press. Do you think anything in Australia has changed at all as a consequence of, you know, the awareness that was raised from that? What else needs to be done now towards the issue?
From my perspective, and really I can only speak about my own personal experience, the conversation is so much more prevalent. So people are really talking about it, asking questions, asking how to approach things. Like if they do have that question, like they want to ask their black friend, where are they from? How should they, you know, coin that question? And just general conversations with friends have been opened up, whereas they were quite taboo or probably not even thought about in the past. So I really value that and recognise that that's happening around us. And the media has been really good as well. You're seeing a lot more. I mean, the West Australian's been quite good. They did numerous mastheads with Aboriginal art around it for it was for NAIDOC week, I think. And yeah, you're just seeing a lot more people of colour coming through advertising, on the covers of various magazines, being interviewed, where it used to be quite white, really. Quite white. You'd see the same sort of faces
or boxed in, because, you know, they need someone of colour to speak, so you get boxed into that. And
tokenism. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot more representation of different people, different cultures, different looks, which is great. But yeah, we've still got a long. This has been going on for years. This fight for equality, and that's all it is. Is equality is at the, you know, you can call it Black Lives Matter, but it's really just people being treated as people. In an equal manner. So we've got a long way to go, but it's definitely, in my world, I've seen changes. How about you?
I think for me the biggest thing was like I personally had a number of like, oh fuck, or like aha moments. That's probably the better way to say it. Like, oh fuck moments of like, wow, I had no idea. Or just even the little things, like one of my best mates, Doug, he is half Malaysian, half South Indian. His parents from there. He grew up in Brunei, like where he was the subject of racism there because he was darker skinned, and it's just crazy. But like even like the little jokes that would be made about Indian culture and stuff. And I've been to India, like love the place and love him to death, but didn't realize even in jest how how that was kind of playing into a bigger narrative. And it's like, in order to laughing about things is important in life, but when something's kind of a real serious issue for a long time, I think the opinion I formed of it was that we need to kind of like swing, the pendulum needs to swing to one extreme to kind of find its way back to the middle again.
True.
And that's what I realized personally. I got quite emotional actually during that time, just realizing my own actions over a period of time, completely unconsciously and unaware.
I had a few people write to me in that same way. So there's one friend in particular, beautiful, beautiful girl, who I've known for a number of years, and she said, I have never heard the term white privilege. I had no idea that I have white privilege. I've been living with it. And she was super ashamed. And the email was really emotional. And I had to say, don't feel shame for something, not knowing something you you just weren't aware of. If you're unaware, you can't be blamed for it. But now you're aware, so make a change.
Yeah.
So be conscious, and she will. She's the kind of person that will actively make a change. But she felt a whole heap of shame, which is it's not the intention of the Black Lives Matter movement for people to feel shame. It's the intention for people to be educated and understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'd heard that term, white privilege, but like had just not identified with it before. I was like, I don't feel, because we're all stuck in our own little bubble.
You don't
I'm like,
know
how am I privileged? Like, I grew up in a pretty low socioeconomic kind of family, struggling middle class, but it's not about that. It's a more structural, systemic thing, which makes a whole lot of sense to me. Just like, actually, I was thinking about this last night as I was sort of preparing for this catch up. And I was like, this is the second time I've had a woman on the podcast out of, say, 12 now. So the numbers are invariably stacked in the favor of men right now. And with 100 coffees, it got to like 45 or something. I was like, fuck, I just need, I haven't had that many women on, not intentionally, but it was just purely a matter of me associating with people like me, which ultimately is more like men in that scenario. It's just, we're both men, that kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting.
And I kind of got thinking that that's almost the same as, that's not how white privilege started, but that's almost how it plays out today.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
In ways.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, just like not being aware of it. And so I had to make a conscious effort to reach out to women to have coffee with, because I genuinely wanted to catch up with all kinds of people.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the first 20 or 30. Or just like I hadn't really had that many women reach out to me when I sort of posted about it as well. So, which maybe says something about other people seeing opportunities in that way as well.
True.
So,
yeah.
I think it's, I kind of hypothesize that if we had an alien invasion on Earth tomorrow, that like we'd all just forget about it and be like, oh shit, we're
one race.
Do you guys want to work together now?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as borders if the whole Earth's under attack, I
fantasize about that as well.
Yeah.
I actually hope that one day, and I can't see it happening anytime in the next millennia, but there's just a melting pot of just cultures coming together, and there being such a hard way to differentiate between people based on their looks. Just that there's so much interracial connection and reproduction that we can just be one race. But sounds very woo woo.
Well, I mean,
it's great.
And that's the thing, like we really are one race, but over time, as the continent split and we all got separated, certain pigments in people's skin became more prevalent to adapt more for the sun and heat, and like it's just so crazy, isn't it? Think about it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm glad we're talking about it, and it's an important conversation to be had, and I'm definitely really, really grateful for the fact that you shared that article, and I've had friends who've since shared their experiences and brought awareness to myself. So
I think those personal stories are the way that really connect with people, because if you're not giving an opinion, you're just telling your lived experience, so it can't be scrutinized. And that's important. So I always think my story is quite little, and people kept on telling me, no, that was big and that was brave, but I don't feel that way. I just feel like, well, this is just how I've lived my life. And I shared that. And now I've got kids my husband's Aboriginal, my kids are Aboriginal, so that adds a whole new layer of prejudice that I fear for them. So that was another reason I wanted to speak out. Hopefully prevent that for them.
I mean, you just reminded me, I just had one of the, a friend of mine in the US, Preston Smiles, he was talking about like the US is a whole different like kettle of fish, obviously, to Australia, but the same kind of issues happen on different levels. And he was saying about like having to have the talk to his son, who's 2 years old, like when he gets to be 10 or something, about how to behave when he's around police and, you know, because of his color. And I was just, that was another one that just like completely blew my mind. Like, no one ever had a conversation with me that I wasn't safe in public because of who I am.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel exactly the same as you. And until this movement started happening, I hadn't really thought about it. But the other day I had a conversation with my 11-year-old who'd been out with some friends, and then they'd gone to the shops, and one of the people that was a friend of a friend came and said, "Oh, I'm going to put this in my jacket and walk out." And I said to my son, I don't want you hanging out with him at all, ever, firstly, unless it's, you know, riding around the park, which is what they usually do, riding around on their BMXs. But I said, if the police came, if he got caught and the police came, you would be looked at differently, and it's just a fact. And I'd never really, like you, I'd never really thought about saying that to him in the past. But this movement, I mean, the whole thing is about the police treating everyone equally, but it is a fact that he would probably be looked at differently because of the colour of his skin, and he needs to be aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good kid, and he shouldn't be hanging around with kids that are doing things that aren't right.
Yeah.
But he's got that extra layer to it.
I shoplifted when I was a kid.
Did you?
Yeah. So he did, you know, he's got hope. Is what I'm saying. Well, I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah. You never got caught though?
Nah, I only did it like once. Same kind of situation. I can't even remember if I actually did it or I had friends doing it. It was almost an identical situation. Like, oh, just cover for me while I slip this down. Like, my friend had a cast on or something. He slipped some Listerine. Those Listerine strips. So stupid. I'm stealing them. I don't even want that.
Yeah.
Those like Listerine fresh strips, and he slipped them down his arm, like his cast, and then we walked out with it. So.
I mean, yeah, when you're a kid at that age, it's just the thrill of doing
trying to
something.
Push the boundaries.
Yeah, and you learn. It's coming of age. You're learning, you know, what your limits are, what you can and can't get away with. So I get it, but I don't want my son.
No,
anywhere near it.
Understandably so. I'd be having the same conversation with my son. Yeah. You mentioned your husband Troy, an ex Freo Dockers player, and when we caught up, you spoke about how you guys met and sort of everything happened really quickly, which I related to because my son was born, sort of like 12 months into being with his mother, fell pregnant really quickly, and so yeah, totally related to that journey. My sort of perspective on a lot of relationships moving that quickly now is a lot of them have come from like maybe a toxic connection place, but that's a totally different theme to yours from what you told me. So tell us about that whole journey.
Jeez, I really did open up when we had coffee, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, where do I start? So I was the events manager at the Dockers, events coordinator, and when I was interviewed, they said, you're not allowed to date the players. And I said, I'd actually dated an Eagle when I was really young, like early 20s, and it was a horrible relationship, and I had no intention of ever, I put all footballers in one box. I had no intention of ever
You hear that all
dating.
the time, don't you?
I know. Well, yeah, I gave him a bad rap after that relationship, on relationship basis, that's all. So yeah, I said in that interview, I've got no intention of dating a footballer. Don't worry, no interest. I've already got a boyfriend, blah, blah. But then I met Troy, and yeah, he actually retired before we started dating. So technically I didn't break the rules, but
like actually, or is that just a public story?
He did. He retired.
Yeah.
And then, he started turning up at I lived in Northbridge. He started turning up at my local, which was the Brisbane, every Sunday. And he knew I'd be there. And then, one day he walked me home, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But, in terms of going into parenthood quite quickly, we'd only been dating 5 months.
Wow.
And we had to make a big decision.
Yeah.
And I was very pragmatic about the whole thing. I was really, I was 31 then. So I felt like it was a good time to have a baby. And I just said to him, I'm going to have it. And if you want to stay and see where our relationship goes, then great. But if you don't, I totally respect that as well. But I really want to have this child. And my parents had offered to support me. So, it was scary, but I made that decision alone. And then when I spoke to him about it, it took a bit of weeks of deciding and maybe even months deciding what was going to happen. But eventually I moved in with him and we decided to give it a go. And a year and a half later we had another baby.
Obviously went well.
So 14 years on now. And it was the best. I feel like I was really lucky that, obviously we were already in a relationship, but it was fledgling. But I feel like our child kind of banged our heads together like Cupid and said, you're supposed to be together. And luckily we were.
Yeah.
And he's just the greatest guy. I absolutely adore him. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's worked out well.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people it doesn't. So I kind of feel bad sometimes talking about it, but
I don't feel bad about it at all.
For us.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story. What was it like making that decision to like, I'm going to have this baby on my own no matter what? And, you would have had to accept that you were going to basically maybe raise a child alone.
Yeah, it was super scary. So my mum and my stepdad was quite religious. So as soon as I had told them that I was pregnant, in his mind there was no other alternative anyway, which, it wasn't his decision, but that was definitely something that influenced me, like his strong prejudice against termination. But it was what I wanted anyway. So their support was what made me think, okay, I can do this on my own. I would have moved back in with them until I found my feet, but they would have helped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I hadn't have had them, it might have been a different story. I still probably would have had it, but it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah.
But in my heart, it was just what I wanted. I knew that it was meant to be. I've only fallen pregnant twice and I've got 2 kids, so it's one of those things that I just thought,
huge turning point moment in your life.
Yeah.
Obviously, because now you've got a family and
Yep. And the way it worked out with Troy was just when I was younger, like I said, he's Aboriginal, so he's black, and with that whole chip on my shoulder that I said I had in all my teens and early 20s, I only dated people who had blonde hair and blue eyes because I wanted to wash away any colour in our future children.
So they didn't have to deal with what you went through, kind of thing.
Yeah, which when I think back, that kind of way of thinking, just that it's sad. It was really sad. It was a sad way to view potential partners and just view myself, my self-confidence and view, I think it was fear for my children growing up with the same sort of bullying that I'd grown up with, and same sort of attitude that I'd grown up with. Yeah. So that's another layer of it, I guess. I ended up with a black man. Our kids have got beautiful dark skin and I love it. Yeah. And incidentally, I met Troy just after I'd come back from Kenya. Yeah. So my attitude really shifted.
Insane how things just, happen the way they're meant to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy.
All those beautiful men I was cutting out of my life because they had dark skin. Yeah. It's a sad story.
Yep. Well, you're a living example of the saying, isn't it? Once you go black, you never go back. That's what you said to me at the cafe.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true in my case.
So I've got no hope. Generally. So I think like there is some optimism to be had around this whole topic of prejudice and discrimination. I'm 30. When I was growing up, it was, a huge thing if you know, it was still a huge thing if someone came out as being gay, and like no one really did in high school at all. But now you've got kids who are quite openly, you know, open about their sexuality, and it's not even a non-issue really.
Yeah,
like it's just normal
because
you've got gay couples who have kids and
yep.
all that sort of stuff. But
That's
you know,
wonderful.
I think we're probably going to be having I'm probably going to be having a conversation with my son at one point, being like, "Yeah, no, it was like the year before you were born that gay marriage was legalized."
Yeah,
which
100%.
sounds so old school and ancient.
Yeah. Well, when the vote was going through with my kids, they were just dumbfounded at how we were even voting on it. They were like, "Why can't what love is love?" It was just a non-issue for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll watch something on TV, like, you know, how you're seeing ads now on TV and you'll have a gay couple. There's this one in particular that I'm thinking of where two guys are sitting in a car and they've just gotten engaged and they ring their parents to tell them, or ring one of their parents, and watch that ad with the whole family. And the kids are just like, "Oh, that's so lovely." And Troy and I are looking at each other going, wow, TV has come a long way with attitudes towards that. You know, the prejudice is just slowly dissipating. But with our kids, they're like, it's just normal. It's absolutely normal to them, which is wonderful.
It is.
They don't bat an eyelid.
Yeah. So you, because Troy had retired, you never kind of had to go through the, you know, the WAG label at all? Like,
he played waffle. So he went back to captain Perth Football Club.
Yeah, cool.
The year after he retired. So, yeah, in that way I was a waffle wag.
Yeah. But has it, I'm interested to know, you know, have you kind of, because you've been incredibly successful in your own right, and I think we're about to get to that in a minute, but like, have you ever had to deal with sort of the label of like, former Freo Dockers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, even you know, Troy Cook's wife, you know, you've kind of got that label instead of just being Tamara Cook.
All the time. Yeah. When I did that newspaper article, like I said, it was just an op-ed. I don't think I mentioned my husband's name. In fact, I'm sure I didn't mention my husband's name. I just said that I was married to a man who was Aboriginal. But when they put it on the front page, it was wife of former football, former Fremantle star, Troy Cook. And then when it went on social media, the backlash was all about, another wag wants her 15 minutes of fame. Who is she? Who even is she? Another footballer's wife, just, you know, spouting out off. Is all about that. And people, I'm sure, hadn't even read the article, but they were just condemning me because I was a footballer's wife. And it doesn't really bother me because you expect it of the or parts of the West Australian community. It's expected, honestly. But yeah, it's frustrating. Most things I do, I don't, like if I meet new people, I don't mention who he is, especially if I know they're an AFL fan. I won't mention that my husband played footy, because it does, they suddenly, the conversation will turn, or they'll look at me in a different light, and I do want to stand on my own merits with what I do.
And I think you do, you know, and I think everyone does stand on their own 2 feet, but it's I wanted to ask because it kind of plays again into that obsession with like labels that society has at the moment, which has been an interesting theme so far of the conversation.
Yeah. And the rise of the WAG has been pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah.
A lot of women they've capitalised on it, and good on them. They've just really brought their skill set to the limelight via, and maybe not even intentionally, but it's happened via their husband because they've got that platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta take what you get in life, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we were talking about how successful you've been on your own 2 feet in your own right, and
thank you.
Yeah. Well, like, tell us about your events company, because it's been, how long have you been running the company for now?
For 13 years.
That's huge.
So it's funny the way that you've asked these questions, because everything comes back to that pivotal moment of going to Kenya for me. So, yeah, I held myself back for so many years because I couldn't figure out my own identity. I didn't know I was attached to relationships for a very long time. I had long-term relationships all through my teens and 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I had really low self-esteem basically. And then when I went to Kenya, met my other half of my family, sort of figured out who I was. I feel like I had a really late coming of age, in a sense.
At 29, you say?
29. So I'd landed the docker's job and said, I'm just going to go on a little holiday first. And can I start after that? And they said yes. So it was only 3 weeks that I went to Kenya. But yeah, I came back a new person. And so I went into this role at the Dockers, which I absolutely loved, and cut my teeth on full-time event management because I'd sort of dabbled in it all of my hospitality career, but I hadn't done a full-time events role. So I did that at the Dockers, and that's just insanely full of pressure. It's just, you're doing, on game days, you're running 8 dining rooms, and there could be 1,000 people in one dining room, 200 in the next, 600 in the next, 50 in the next, in like a real VIP suite. They're all simultaneously running. So you've got 8 run sheets and 8 MCs and 8 guest speakers going in. So and then there's the game. Yeah. So it's a huge juggernaut when it comes to events. And then through the week, you're doing a whole lot of other events as well. You've got your gala balls and fundraisers and season openers and best and fairest medals. And they're all, upwards of 1,000 people, black tie. So, yeah, it was an awesome training ground for me. Learnt a lot. I was there 2 years. And in the second year, I started Known Associates events because I just wanted to do my own thing. I had a really great network. I knew a lot of people. I was out all the time. I love to party. So I'm in the right industry. I love a drink. I love socializing. I love being at the opening of new things. Yeah. And I love just being in amongst it.
Yeah.
So, at that age, at 29, 30, I was just on fire and wanted to put on my own events. I learnt this great basis and structure of how to hold a really good event through working at the Dockers. And so I started that up as my side hustle.
Yeah.
And did both. So I was working full time and then started running my own. And I just put on, so the first event that I did was a New Year's Day event. So it was around the time when the Perth Cup was really hot. Like everyone went to the hot in both ways, like hot. Sure. You'd go and it would be 40 degrees and you'd be dressed to the nines.
It was like the only event going in Perth.
On New Year's Day, everyone loved going out New Year's Day, which I've never really understood because Perth's weather is so beautiful in December. So night times are luscious. Like I don't even know why we did that in the heat of summer. You'd go out dressed to the nines and just drip with sweat. But anyway, that was the thing. That was the trend. So I was like, okay, let's do a New Year's Day event. There was one other that was on, which was the Cuban Club. Yeah. That's still running to this date. So I put that event on and that took all my spare time and energy outside of the Dockers to run that. And the whole idea around it was I'd donate any proceeds of the event to charity.
Wow.
And that was how Known Associates began with all our events. So from there we did like movie premieres, Sex and the City when that first came out on the big screen. That was huge. So I did the biggest movie prem in Perth.
Wow.
And just moved on to other events that I dreamed up and sold tickets and donated proceeds to various charities.
When did it transition to a business where you were actually making money?
So I fell pregnant not long after my first event and went on mat leave from the Dockers. And it was during that period that I realised Known Associates was quite viable. But I hadn't set it up to make money. It wasn't
Wasn't your intention?
Yeah, it's not an intention, but just wasn't. I've forgotten the word that I want to say.
Just make up a word.
It wasn't the goal. It wasn't what I set out for. It wasn't the essence of why I wanted to start a company. I wanted to start a company to do my own thing, and I wanted to give back to the community. I can't believe I can't think of what that word is, but anyway, there's probably 50 of them to describe what I'm saying. So yeah, making money was like neither here nor there. But when I went on mat leave, I suddenly had, apart from having a brand new baby, had a whole lot more time on my hands to develop that business.
Yeah.
And then I started to have people come to me and want me to consult to them. So that's where it began.
Sure.
Where I started to, but I didn't pay myself a wage for 10 years.
Whoa. Whoa. Wait, it's only the last 4 years.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So when we became a company, I was a sole trader for ages. And then, when we became a company, I started paying myself a wage.
Wow.
But it just wasn't my motivation. That's the word I was looking for. It just was not my motivation.
I mean, you weren't paying yourself a wage, but you were taking profit from the business.
I mean, the business sustained itself 100%.
Yeah.
And then, as a sole trader, it would pay for my petrol and things like that. And
we avoid tax as much as we can legally.
Yeah. But it just wasn't my motivation to run a business that was for profit in the beginning. And then, I got to a point where I was like, okay, a lot of people want my services. Let's do it. So I turned it into a company and haven't looked back since. Now I've got 6, before COVID there were 6 of us. So we've got 4 staff now and an intern.
And is it ramping back up, since COVID? Because, I mean, you were saying COVID hit. I mean, your events company is kind of like events travel. A couple of other industries were just like wiped.
Shut down, yeah. We shut down for 3 months.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the doors would reopen, but we have. And I mean, it's looking really positive. We're in the luckiest situation being in Western Australia. So it's nothing like it was before, don't get me wrong. And JobKeeper is a godsend. That's really kept us going. As soon as that kicked in, we could come back to work and start diversifying our skills. So we looked at doing a lot more marketing, graphic design, all the things that we do that go into live events, but we just did them in isolated projects rather than leading towards a live event. So that's been really good because we've learnt new avenues that we can monetize and the girls have still been employed. The team is great. And that my main goal now is to keep them all employed.
Yeah.
So, I'm always looking at different revenue streams but in terms of events coming back, they are.
Yeah.
The problem is it all feels very tentative. So we can put in all the work for a major event and set that, you've got a long lead time for an event, maybe 3, 6, 12, 18 months out, depending on the size of the event. So we start them off, but we know that there's this feeling of like it could be cancelled. If you look at what's happening in Melbourne and you just think, we're doing it all and we're going ahead and the money's being spent, the planning's being done, but it could be cancelled and there's nothing we can do about that. Yeah. So, it feels a little bit tentative and unstable.
I feel like we could have a whole hour talking about COVID, but the different opinions on
let's
that.
Not.
I'll go down the rabbit hole some other time.
Look, in WA, in Perth particularly, we're pretty safe and we're definitely, and people are loving being at events. They just light up and it's definitely been missed and it's definitely necessary.
100%. Yeah. I noticed a couple of events I've been, looking at going to, just been booking out so quickly because there's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do.
People are desperate for live music and connection.
Making the most of Perth, which feels good, kind of like it. Yeah. There's definitely, I can't wait to get on a plane and go overseas, honestly, but it does feel good just to almost like have that choice removed a little bit and be like, you know what, I've been saying I'm going to go up to Broome for like 10 years and I haven't been, I've never been to Kununurra. I've always wanted to go. Like, just now's the time because I'm not going anywhere else. So
yep.
Yeah.
You and the rest of WA
Exactly.
will be
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly.
You know, you can't buy a caravan in WA at the moment. They're just sold out.
Yeah,
everywhere.
okay.
Hilarious.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit, I mean, there's things everywhere like that happening. Obviously, accommodation. I'm going up to Coral Bay in a month's time, and like there was,
lovely.
I booked a month ago, and there was like 1 or 2 rooms left in Coral Bay. Just managed to get in. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. I haven't been there. I'd love
Never.
to. Yeah.
Oh man, it's like probably one of my favorite places in Western Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the great thing about what's happened is people really understand how beautiful our state actually is.
Yeah.
And you think about spending thousands on going overseas, and you might spend the same amount here.
Definitely will.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, that drive like up the coast or down the coast or inland, it's beautiful. Like we live in a beautiful place, and I think we've all become so accustomed to going to Bali that it's nice to.
But I love Bali.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the Balinese people.
Yeah, same. I've got a few friends living there, and I'm like, that wouldn't be such a bad place to get isolated in.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you go, like, handling basically a whole business being wiped out overnight?
It was devastating. Yeah, it was. It literally was over the period of a week from Monday to Friday. We went in on Monday thinking, we might have to start working remotely, like working from our office remote, taking our office remote. And then, so that was Monday, and then by Friday, we just closed. We just gone from, okay, we just have to work from Zoom to we don't have a business. I had to stand down all my team. No one had a job. Shut the doors on the office.
Crazy.
And and we just were at home thinking, for me, I was just, it was super frustrating because, you know, when you built something up for 13, 14 years and then it's taken away from you through no fault of your own. And we were on fire in 2019. I was ready to put on another staff member. Events were just going crazy. There was a real momentum happening. And so it was just flooring that would happen. But my team are amazing. We stayed in contact every week, at least once a week, and we'd jump on Zooms and just chat, talk about what was going on. I'd ask them, you know, lots of them, a couple of them went back to their parents' houses and we stayed buoyant and positive, and we kept putting out social media, just telling people what we were doing and how we were feeling and how it was affecting our industry. And that, I've been told since, was a really good reflection of our company culture because it's just the way we are and the way that we are a little bit like family. We love what we do, so it doesn't ever feel like we're working. And we realised even without being able to do what we do, we still have that connection and ability to stay together as a team, even from our separate houses, and just keep each other buoyed, I guess. And,
what did you do,
positive.
like personally, during the lockdown? Yeah,
I read and I walked. I walked so much that I had groin pains. I love walking. Really? So, I had a bit of muscle damage there because I was just walking for at least 2 hours a day.
Wow.
But I love reading.
What did you read?
Everything. I've got from books on, I've got this book called Africa that's about that thick, that goes through the history of Africa in the last 50 years.
Wow.
But I am a sucker for crime novels. So I would read about 3 crime novels a week, and biographies, and quite diverse range actually.
What was the book that like stood out the most, you enjoyed the most?
There was one author, which, here's the story. Her name's Dervla McTiernan. So she's Irish, and she writes about a police station. So it's Irish crime novels, all set in Ireland, in Dublin and Galway. And I read her first book, and she had 3 out, and I just divulged it straight away. And I was telling another friend, I was telling everyone I knew about these books. So The Ruin was the first one I read, and I was telling one of my friends, and she goes, "Oh, she's one of my school mums." And I went, "What?" yeah, that was the face I had. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? She's Irish. She lives in Ireland.
Yeah.
And she said, no, she used to, but now she lives in Perth and
No
she's one of my
way.
school mums.
Crazy.
And I said, I'm coming to pick up your kids with you on Friday. So she lives in sunny Perth and she's this amazing writer.
Wow.
And one of the books has been optioned for a Hollywood movie with Colin Farrell
Whoa.
playing the lead role. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I thought that was pretty exciting. So yeah, I'm fangirling hard. I'm going to go find her. She's in the northern suburbs somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, so you haven't met her yet?
Nope.
Nah.
But I will.
You just,
it's on my list.
yeah, sneak into your friend's car for school pickup.
Yeah, she's such a good writer. But so I want to write my story. I've always wanted to write a book. And I started writing at uni and I started the Coconut Complex, I called it, when I was at uni. So I definitely want to write that one day. So I think at the moment I'm just reading as much as I can to just, reading makes you a better writer, but I've also got to start writing. But that's another story. I was supposed to be in France for a writer's retreat this year. But
that's right. You said that.
Couldn't go.
Whereabouts in France?
In the south, Conflans.
Yeah, okay. That's another place I want to travel to. Like I've someone I follow is there right now and I'm just like, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Tried to get to France so many times. It's never happened.
Yeah.
One day.
When it's meant to.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Like what's on your, if you have a vision board, what's kind of, because you said, when we caught up, you said, I have these moments where I'm like, besides COVID, I'm like really living my dream now. So do you just keep doing what you're doing? Is there more?
No, I get bored pretty easily. So I've always got my eyes on another project.
Turn your hair blue. It's
that might be harder for me than you. But yeah, I'll try. My daughter would in a heartbeat. She loves blue. Anyway, so we started just before COVID happened. I started a new business with my husband called Known Associates Australia. So a sister company to Known Associates, which has a focus on Indigenous, working with other Indigenous businesses within the event scope. So graphic designers, caterers, things like that, and bringing Indigenous uni students or TAFE students, tertiary students, through my internship program. So they would work on the Known Associates Australia side of in that company, and learn that skill set of event management.
Cool.
Because the thinking behind that was the company is owned by Troy, so it's 100% Indigenous owned, which is, there's a big push for that because that's quite a rare thing for Indigenous people to be company owners in Australia. So that was important for us. B, it was to show the kids a pathway for someone who is in their culture and how you can dream big and be your own boss. Yeah. And then thirdly, it was to give Indigenous people, because Troy works with so many Indigenous youth, and there's a lot of lack of confidence within a lot of people in the community. So I really wanted to provide a platform to specifically encourage and welcome them and train them in event management skills. And, Aboriginal culture lends itself to event management anyway. So storytelling and dancing and music and, togetherness that's events. So that if you have that sort of cultural background, you're going to succeed in events anyway. Yeah. So that's our thinking with that.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's our latest project. And then, there's a few others on the back burner. The book is definitely, I've got to start that one day.
Yeah. Maybe they say yesterday was the best day to start anything. Today's the next best day.
My problem with writing the book
That's advice to myself as well. I'm not preaching to you.
No, well, you've done it. You're doing lots of stuff. You're great. But my problem with the book is I want to write a crime novel. I want to write what I read, but I also want to tell my story about identity. So I'm trying to weave those two together to have like a really juicy, page-turning, exciting book that has a moral story of identity and finding your place in the world within that. So I'm just trying to figure that out.
So he's telling your story, the themes of your story, without actually talking about yourself. Or will you be a character in the book?
I haven't worked it out yet.
Okay.
I think I'd have to be a character in the book, but my mum meeting my dad and that transcontinental story is quite exciting. So I think that would be a big part of it. Yeah. And then weaving in my life, I'm just trying to figure out what are the exciting bits that would be good to put in. Working on cruise ships, I think, is part of it because people find that quite intriguing.
When did you do that?
I was 25, my mid-20s.
Cool.
Yeah, that was awesome in the Caribbean. It was just it was the Love Boat. It was an absolute fuck fest.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Good place to be at 25, I suppose.
Yeah, it was fun. With people from all over the world. So, there's lots of stories I could tell.
Yeah, sure.
About all the little relationships that went on and, Yeah. It's fun. Anyway, I digress. Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. What do you... one question I always like finishing off with is what do you find most interesting about yourself?
I don't know. The most interesting thing about me.
Well, it's what you find interesting about yourself.
My inability to speak when I'm put on the spot.
Oh, yeah. Great answer.
I don't know. Maybe I think you may have asked me this before. I probably gave the same answer, but just my love of people.
Yeah.
It's insatiable. I love hearing people's stories. I love being around other people and so if I'm not doing it face to face, then I'm reading other people's stories. So curious person, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been real pleasure catching up and having this conversation. And
my pleasure, Alex. You're an interesting person. You're a very interesting person. I think you're very accomplished.
Thank you.
I think it's great. All the things that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thanks for having me as a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I'm just getting started, like at 30. I'm like...
Yeah. Wait till you get to your 40s. They're the best.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've been saying like this decade's going to be the best decade of my life, and I'm like, I'll probably say that in 10 years again. So
yeah, you will.
It's all perspective and, what we choose to see, I think. So
yeah.
30s
are for figuring it out. 40s are for enjoying it.
Oh, so everything I think I've figured out already, I definitely haven't figured out. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Oh, fuck. Amazing. Oh, awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. And we'll see you soon.
Pleasure.
That's it for episode 13 of the Alex Waters Show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're tuning in to this. You can find Tamara and her business at Known Associates Events on Instagram, and also connect with me on Instagram at Alexander Waters. And we also have an Instagram now for the Alex Waters Show. So jump on there. Be sure to follow me. Love to get feedback about what's going on in the show and your thoughts on it. And I will see you next week.